Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the My Love of Golf podcast, a very special episode tonight where I said that we'd get back on the interview work, and we're kicking it off with a big one. It's actually a four-person interview. I've got a couple of friends of the podcast, well, one very good friend of the podcast, another previous guest of maybe two or three times, and Australia's newest golf podcaster as well, and an expert in his particular field. We're talking about Kieser tonight, and Matt Mollica and Magic Mike Caridi are both active participants in the world of Kieser. If you don't know what Kieser is, well, we're going to talk all about that. But if you're someone that suffers from some physical issues, pain or otherwise, and maybe if I don't get that right, the guys are certainly going to correct me, but if you need to get your golf better and you need to do that through exercise and specific exercise for golf, tonight is the episode that you need to listen to, and the guys are all experts. Let's bring them in after the music, of course. Gents, good evening. Welcome to the podcast. I should have said in the intro while you're listening that with four very good-looking men on a podcast, we're going to video this because the world deserves to see. Four fellas like us talking about the world of golf and fine physical specimens that we are. Rory, I'll go to you first. Welcome to the My Love of Golf podcast. You're our subject matter expert tonight. Rory Alexander from the world of Kieser. How are you, mate? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me on.
I'm very keen to learn about what you do because, as I said before, I'm the oldest here and probably the most needy of someone working on me like yourself and doing the work that you do. We've got our subject matter experts here. Matt Mollica, how are you?
Well, thanks, Ross. Good to see you.
Mate, and welcome to the world of podcasting. We're not going to spend too much time, but it'd be remiss of me not to welcome you to the world of podcasting. You've been on a number of times. The bug's bitten you. Congrats on putting together Australia's probably one of the podcasts that the world needs to hear about Australian golf golf courses. The Australian Golf Passport, of course. You can check that out. You'll hear Matt. But Matt's going to tell us his journey with Kieser. And, of course, Magic Mike, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, welcome back to your own podcast. You are the rudder of the ship here, as we said on Tuesday night. It's our second time this week, so it's absolutely a pleasure. Now, how do we go? Who wants to lead off? Matt, I might get you to explain, your world of Kieser in terms of, how you got to the point where you needed to seek out Kieser. And then we might go to Rory, and Rory's going to explain a little bit more about what Kieser is and what it does.
Okay. I've been going for a number of years now. I started going in the management of a really acute back problem that had plagued me for a long time. Back in 2016, I was experiencing escalating back pain, and it just wasn't being managed by a whole host of traditional simple treatments, anti-inflammatories and analgesics and heat packs. And I did a little bit of physio, massage, needling, all sorts of stuff. And that sort of helped it, but it just wasn't getting any better. Couldn't stand over a putt. I think I went 10 months without playing golf and started to get a little depressed as a consequence of that. I had 3 or 4 people tell me that you've got to go to this place, you've got to go to Kieser, you've got to go to this place, you've got to improve your strength. And I didn't really want to hear that at first. I didn't really want to listen to the second guy. And then weight of numbers got me across the line, and I've been going pretty much 3 times a week ever since. And I'm of the opinion that I probably should have been going for at least 5 years prior to having started.
It's a story that, I speak to a lot of golfers, as you know. You guys know what I do, and I stand and speak to golfers all day, every day, pretty much. And I hear stories like yours a lot. I'm coming back, recovered from an injury. I had some form of challenge physically, and it's not getting better, or I just manage it. And, quite often, people talk about Kieser. I get a lot of people that come in that have been to Kieser, and it's still something that I've got to learn about, so that must have been a pretty challenging space to be in, standing over a putt and being in pain and then thinking that you're probably not going to play golf or having to miss it for so long. I can't imagine what that does to you. Rory, this is where you come in, give us that intro into who Kieser is, what Kieser is, how does it come about? And, what's some of the, world of Kieser, and who do you see? Do you see Matts and Mikes and Marys all day long? What does it look like?
Thanks, Matt, for your kind words there. Well, Kieser love to hear clients try to explain what Kieser is, and they say, "Oh, it's a bit of a gym, it's a bit of a physio clinic. There's these people called exercise scientists there. I don't really know what they do." But it's quite funny when they try to explain it. But hopefully I can somewhat explain a little bit better than them. But in a nutshell, we're a physiotherapy-led, state-of-the-art, machine-based strength training facility. So, yeah, as I said, state-of-the-art machinery. So, I suppose when you come in, you'll get a physio assessment. So, like you both had in the first initial time when you came, and then you'll get a course. You'll have a course of physiotherapy initially, and depending on Matt, I think you saw Alex for probably a few weeks, probably initially.
Yep.
And so it's led by a physiotherapist initially. So you'll utilise machine-based training and active rehabilitation to recover from whatever potential injury that you're coming in with. So for you, Matt, I think it was pretty angry, non-specific lower back pain, and it was acute at the stage, but it had been chronic for a fair while. So initially, as I said, a physiotherapist will lead you through a period and a course of therapy, and that's a mix of traditional physiotherapy with, as I said, active-based, machine-based strength training. So post initial phase of physiotherapy, we'll lead the client or the subject in through a long-term approach to managing the condition by themselves or under supervision long-term. And that's where Mike and Matt are at the moment. We consistently check up on their progress. Matt, you do supervised sessions each week. Haven't cracked you yet, Mike, but you'll be doing them shortly. We can talk about the machinery and whatnot in further depth. But as I said, in a nutshell, physiotherapy-led strength training with state-of-the-art machine-based equipment.
And is that the only way to become a Kieser client is to commit to you're doing the physio part of it, but then also
not necessarily, no.
Right. Okay. Because
no, depending on again level of or the reason for coming in, like Matt, you were in a bit of strife when you first started. Mike, probably not to the extent, but you had a pretty angry back as well. But you might have just somebody who's keen to improve their strength and well-being. So they'll have an assessment. What the machines allow us to do is to use data to develop the program. So we'll be able to test particular muscle groups, find out where you're strong and where you're weak, and then determine a program to based around what the client and what the individual needs. So, for example, if you've got really, really weak glutes and a weak posterior chain, and you've got weak hamstrings and whatnot, well, naturally we've got to target those muscles. Think about where we get our power, particularly through a golf swing, it's through our posterior chain. So, a program that's going to be centered around the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back, some core strength is going to be essential. So we kind of use data and strength testing to determine, okay, well, this is what this particular client needs. And getting back to your question, you do not need to go through a phase of physiotherapy initially unless it's indicated and that it's what's required to get through that acute management phase.
Yeah, no, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think when I went in, so Rory, when we first did the testing that we initially do when you come in, where you obviously look at, for someone like me, like as Rory said, so my back was not in good shape, but it wasn't acute. It was just kind of a long-term thing that I've been dealing with, pretty similar to Matt, where I was using a bit of Nurofen and this and that, a bit of chiro here and there. But when you sort of have someone who knows what they're looking at and you're laying on a table and they can look at the muscles in your back and say, well, I can see here things aren't right and it's strength here that needs to happen. That's one thing, but then to go on the machine to actually test what parts and which positions you're in and where you have weakness or where you need to improve your strength. The funniest part for me, the position where literally it would almost be where you would be to set up for your golf swing was my weakest position of all the strength that I did was that was my worst. And then obviously, as Rory said, then you can start to build a framework of how you want to improve the strength to that position. And it's all from different parts and muscles in your body to get there.
Now, was that a machine that helped you identify, that posture related for your golf swing was ineffective and the most ineffective? That was a machine that helped actually give you that measurement and quantifiable piece of information that says, let's go here.
Yeah. So we have a machine called our lumbar extensor machine, and that measures the strength of your back. So you'll get locked into this massive piece of equipment that looks like a bit of a spaceship, that you'll have 4 or 5 restraint systems locking your pelvis in, locking your knees in, locking your legs in. So the only muscles that you can produce strength or the movement through is your lumbar multifidus, which is the muscle that extends our spine. And for Mike, his as he said, when he's in somewhat flexion, with his head over the ball, was his weakest position. So there's absolutely no wonder why you're getting pain playing golf or just through everyday life. So that data, as I said, it allows us to determine and work out a bit of a course of action and a plan moving forward, and particular areas of the body that we need to focus on.
Yeah, it's interesting because before my trip to Scotland, April, May, June, I sort of went down a bit of a path of trying to get a little bit stronger, fitter. Like most 50-year-olds, carry a couple of extra kilos. Got some relative issues that come with playing sport all those years. But we have a trainer, and this is not anything to do with my trainer. My trainer was great. We have it at the golf club. We have a gym at the golf club. So the access to, traditional and conventional weight machines and other cable operated machines that you find in a gym are part of my deal. So I can go in there and use them. And we had a trainer. I thought, well, I'll commit to that. And it was like 10 sessions. But, being a data-driven person, what I hear about a machine when it says, I've got a sore back and it can measure and absolutely target how that is or isn't effective, to me, I'm starting to think, okay, that's probably something that I would have preferred to have known quantifiably. And then, you mentioned glutes, hamstrings, back, core. I think anyone that gets to my age that's not done a lot of exercise for a long time probably struggles in those areas. But to be able to know that it's more of one part than the other part and to target specific parts, I'm sitting here listening to that, and that appeals to me. Mike, how did your back issue eventuate?
Yeah, mine was a footy injury from probably, I'm 45 now, so I was probably 20-ish, maybe a little bit younger than 20. I hurt my back playing football and had pretty bad pain for a long time, and just literally had painkillers and gave up footy and was done. I was never going to be a good footballer anyway, but it was pretty much finished. And the biggest thing for me wasn't necessarily from playing sport or doing things that you would think might flare it up. So golf didn't hurt it. Sitting on a bike for a long time didn't hurt it. For me, it was everyday life. So I travel a lot for work, or I did then especially. I'd go and stay, travel overseas or travel interstate and sleep in different hotel rooms here and there. I could not walk the next day if I slept in a hotel bed, just because of the fact that it wasn't what I was used to sleeping on. And pretty similar to Matt, I had so many people and heard ads about Kieser for a long time and knew there was one around the corner, and I just never done it. And it was 18 months ago, just about to the day, where I was like, you know what, I really should do something about this and start going and sorting out whether they can help. I didn't know much about it outside of, I think my description, Rory, is always, it's a cross between kind of a normal gym, the physio, and a Pilates session. It's somewhere in the middle of all three of those. I didn't know whether it was going to help. I didn't really know much about it. And I went in and started doing it. And yeah, similar to Matt, I go 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I used to go to the chiro probably once a month. I've probably been twice this year, max, absolute maximum. So yeah, it's been a long-term thing, but definitely seen results from it.
Matt, you're in the medical field, you're a practitioner, and so your stuff. I would say when it comes to skeletal or musculoskeletal things, your stuff. Has it helped you in, you mentioned getting depressed by not being able to play golf, and I'm not sure how far that went, but you're a pretty healthy looking guy now. Has it helped you maintain or develop fitness by being part of the Kieser system outside of just going 3 times a week?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure my frame of mind has changed. Having gone regularly, having rid myself of crippling pain, being able to get back to the things that I really love doing, not having regular daily activities hobbled by debilitating low back pain, as Mike was saying. So you get into patterns of dread or avoidance or pain management if you just forge ahead and want to do something that is going to be painful. That change has been huge. Yeah. And I'm sure that Rory would be able to tell you for hours about patients who've had similar positive experiences because of the work that he and his team have done.
Rory, I want to ask you about, sort of who Kieser, fits for. I would suggest after just hearing Matt and Mike speak that there's probably not a right profile. You probably, might have a sort of a range, but let's talk about Kieser for a second. The name and the origins of Kieser. That's important when people want to make a connection to, it's not just there's a theory, a science, and name behind it. What is Kieser? Where did the origins of Kieser come from?
It's a great question. The founder, Werner Kieser, he recently passed away, actually, a couple of years ago. But he used to train. Well, he was a bodybuilder himself back in the 60s and 70s, and he was good friends with a man called Arthur Jones, who some of you may know. He was a kind of pioneer in the kind of methodology and the principles that Kieser uses, which is single set, high intensity strength training to momentary muscular failure. And he developed a set of machines called Nautilus, which again, some of the listeners might have heard of. The next iteration of Nautilus was Med-X, okay, and then Kieser is the next iteration after Med-X. So the equipment has kind of been developed and it's progressed, and there's been new iterations of machines and more development and better engineering over the years. But yeah, it started all the way back in Switzerland in the 60s with a pull-up bar and a bench press and a big guy called Werner Kieser. And then it came to Australia in 2006. So our founder brought it across here from Switzerland after a bit of convincing from Werner himself, and they weren't too fond of bringing it here in the initial stages. But our founder Gary, who's still a member of ours and an avid golfer at Essendon, I think you've maybe met him before, Matt. Brought it across here, and the Australian model has somewhat been somewhat changed from the European model. It's over there it is seen as more of a gym for your ongoing strength and well-being, and less so rehab, although they are learning lessons from the Australian model. And I suppose our model is yes, it's more I suppose targeted towards a rehabilitation, injury management cohort of people, I suppose. But I think as we're growing, as we're developing as a business, we are probably starting to see more and more clients who are just keen for just general strength and well-being. Now that the knowledge and the brand is out there, and I suppose the results are out there as well from people like Matt and Mike, and you don't necessarily have to come in with an injury of some sort. You can come in for a golfer who's just keen to improve their swing and gain 20, 30 extra meters on their drive, or somebody who just wants to improve their cardiac health, metabolic health. They want to reduce their incidence or risk of developing a chronic disease. There's so many benefits out there for strength training. So yeah.
Specific to the golfers, what would you see you're a golfer listening to this at home and you might have some challenge, some injury. What are the things that you see? What are the types of injuries that golfers present with that you're classically working on and helping them, build strength around?
Yeah, Mike, I think you hit it on the head. It wasn't necessarily a sporting, or might have been initially a sporting injury, and particularly golfers, depending on whatever age they are, they're somewhat have been athletic people at some stage in their life, and they may have had injuries and they've nagged them for years and years, but it's often a sedentary lifestyle or things of like you said before, Mike, sitting, traveling, seated positions where you cause imbalances in the body, and then it might be exacerbated by something like golf. So you go out, you've been sitting in your office on a desk chair for 5 days for 10 hours a day, and then you go out to the golf club, don't warm up and do a little Zalatoris like on the weekend. So
or I got a Barnbougle with Ross and play 92 holes in a row and then come home cooked.
Correct. So look, our typical clientele is we get a lot of golfers, but it's probably more of a lower backs, osteoarthritic hips and knees, degenerative injuries, rather than and it might be set off by an acute episode, but the long-standing issue has been there for an extended period of time.
Sorry, Mike, you go.
I was going to say one thing we probably need to make sure people understand, because I know you talked about the machines and Kieser coming to Australia. Is probably just get an understanding to link in why it is different to like a normal gym and what sets it apart. Yeah. But also, like I know before we talked about the big spaceship that tests the strength of your back, but some of the machinery in there is quite different to a normal gym, and probably give people a bit of an understanding of, for someone like me that has that lower back or is a golfer with something that I want to work on, some of those machines that are quite well, they're all good at sort of hitting those specific muscles, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. You walk in and you walk around the training floor, and I guarantee that you'll come across, whether it's in your program set for you or not, you'll see some machines and think, what the hell does that do? Yep. And even the lower back machine, sometimes you look at that and think, don't know how to get into that, or it is quite simple once you learn it. But what the machines are engineered to do, and the machines are engineered in a particular way, which I'll get at in a second, but they're single joint movements. So we do have a few compound exercises, which means you're moving two joints at once. But a single joint machine means that we can target those imbalances in our body and use that data really effectively. So, for example, let's say hip abduction, so the ability to abduct our hip, which is a very important muscle for a number of things, but in particular golf. We have a machine for that. Think about also the golf swing and how intricate it is. We're using every muscle and every joint almost in our body. If we've got an imbalance somewhere within that golf swing, and it's breaking down our swing, well, we can kind of find that and target the program and target the really fine, small movement that might be contributing to a breakdown or exacerbating pain. They are quite unique. There's some unique movements. There's a machine that allows our torso to rotate. So oblique strength, which naturally, as I'm sure you're well aware, is very important within the golf swing. Things like external hip rotation. So again, I'm sure we've all had lessons where we get told, okay, rotate, both through torso and hips. So muscles that produce that rotation, and as we talked about before, some different kind of glute machines that are very difficult, I suppose, to activate with both functional training, so your squats and your deadlifts and whatnot, but also with traditional style gym equipment.
Yeah. I was going to say with the oblique one, I
Mm.
think one of the good things about it is anyone can, like I've seen a lot of people do different drills and things at the gym where they're moving to try and work on that specific part of their body. And no, people that aren't watching on YouTube can't see me pointing to my, my outside of my, I'll say my abs, even though they're not really abs, on the side of my body, my obliques. But the machine, and I'm terrible at remembering what numbers it is, but is it 2.1? Yes,
The
they're both
rotation one.
Yeah.
Well
One.
done.
There you go. I'm getting there. I'm remembering.
Oh, 1.1.
No, 1.1.
1.1.
Sorry.
I was
Sorry.
close.
I made the same mistake. If it's anything.
It's exceptional in the way that it hits that muscle. Like you went to give people a sort of mental image of what I'm talking about. So think about sitting in a chair and having pads to lock down your quads into the chair and your shins into the chair, so your lower body can't move. But then from your waist, you're twisting and then pulling kind of a lever to pull your body around. Okay. So that motion normally would obviously hit a point, but with the weights that are there and the setting that it's on, pretty much within about 30 seconds, you will start feeling the specific muscle that it's trying to activate. Within 30 seconds, it will hit that exact muscle. Like the fact that that machine is built to do that or to hit that so perfectly is very, very good. Very good.
Matt, I was going to ask you, so, you've been going for all the time that you mentioned there. You go a few times a week. What does a session look like for you? Is every session the same, or do you have, what is it like when you go on Monday?
They've changed as I've gone on over the years. The staff there have modified the program that I do as I've got stronger and as I've had less pain. They've mixed things up for the sake of variety, and they've moved away from a purely rehab focus, looking at a degenerative older low back with no glute strength, and looked at improving strength at a variety of other areas in addition. I'd usually spend 40 minutes there. As Rory said, you do really slow repetitions. So you do 12-second repetitions of exercises, eccentric for a few seconds, a little bit of a hold, concentric for a few seconds, bit of a hold, and then you just repeat. And you repeat until the point where you achieve failure and you attempt a repetition and think, no, I'm done. And that's it. Our gym sessions are app-driven, so we have our programs on our phone. We're able to set up machines into our positions with the cues on the phone, set our weights according to the prompts on the phone, and then we just record the time that we've done in each exercise in each session. And as you progress, you can keep your exercises the same, but you might increase the weight. And then you'll increase the time that you do that. Then you'll exceed 2 minutes and think, okay, it's time for me to put the weight up again. So there's this continual progression. And touching on that point that you raised before, Ross, there's this measurable progress with what you're doing in terms of weight and time and performance.
That's cool. Having an app there, which I'm going to assume that it's pretty easy just to, once you get in the machine, you just punch in your data and go, once you finish, just go bang, bang, as you're catching your breath and moving to the next one.
Yeah. If you walk home, or once you're home and you're having a drink or a meal after your session, you can look back and say, okay, well, how did I go today? There's archives of performances on particular machines over time, so you can see how you've gone with many sessions on the same machine. It's really neat that measurable data-driven element of it is I find really appealing.
Yep.
That's what you got out of it session a couple of weeks ago, Mike, is we retested your strength. And so we can test the lower back strength, but we got a device that can test on a number of different machines, and I think we had some pretty good results here. Your glute strength from when you first started, or midway through your progress, it improved by 30 or 40%.
Yeah,
something like
and
that.
my core, so it improved. It was 25% better than it was when I started. Yeah. So low base, I'm sure, but that's the other piece. So not only have you got your app to keep track of your each session and each machine, but then you sort of book in every 3 months and you'll do a review. And that's when you've got two different, you guys correct me, but at least two types of review. So one will be the one where you can go to a specific machine and it'll measure how much sort of power output. But then you can go back to the original the back one that we talked about at the beginning and do those tests again, and it'll chart to show you how you've improved, but it'll also, Rory, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can also measure you against same age brackets and things like that.
Yeah. To determine, well, I suppose that's the data we use to determine if there is an imbalance or a weakness there. So measure against a big population where, so if you're in a lower percentile, and we can say, okay, well, a fair bit of work to do here. This is the area we need to develop. Yeah.
Now, Rory, did you say that the machines and the exercise that you complete on the machine in each stage or set or whatever you call it, is it one single set maximum to maximum strain? Right.
Yeah, and there's the caveat on that as well is you wouldn't come in the first time and train to full momentary muscular failure.
Yeah.
There's a preparation phase, so you not ease someone into it, but you prepare the muscle over the first few sessions, but as of week 3 or 4, you should kind of be hitting those intensities. And single set strength training, there's so much research into it, but it's only effective if we reach that high intensity. So you do need to be training to that momentary muscular failure, and it's a different form of training than your traditional multi-set training where you might lift it 10 times and put the weights down and then lift them up again a minute and a half later. So what it allows is real efficiency. Matt, you said 40 minutes before, but some clients might get through their workout in 30 minutes, which allows a real efficient training program and something that you can, I suppose, fit into your busy lifestyles. Particularly if you're a golfer and you're spending 6 or 7 hours of your weekend traveling to the golf course playing and then home again. It's not a massive burden to your week where you've got to spend 3 or 4 hours in the gym. It's efficient, it's targeted, and it's timely. You don't have to spend a huge amount of time there.
Again, I had zero idea, but based on recent experience of going to a traditional gym and doing multi-set repetitions and so on and so forth, pretty much everything I did was to maximum strain because I was weak. But it took an hour. Like in some instances, I didn't have quite enough time, and the pre and the post and everything else around it. It's a couple of hours worth of commitment. Get up, drive down there.
And that's not to say that that's not an effective way to train.
No.
Certainly not what we're saying, but many ways in which to get strong. But this is our method, and it's evidence based, and it's proven. But as I said, not the only way to do strength training.
Question for Rory. You can be the salesman here because Matt does the assisted training or the whatever we call it training, and I don't. What's the difference? And why should I be doing that?
Maybe
Matt's fitter than me.
Maybe we should try one, Mike, and see what you think. But it's look, there's a number of reasons that's why supervision is beneficial. And there's people much smarter than me that have done heaps and heaps of research into supervision and looked at the data that comes out of improvements and better strength gains and whatnot. But I think it's reasonably common sense. And Matt, you'll be able to tell us a bit about your experience around your supervised sessions versus your non-supervised sessions. But particularly with single set training and with the equipment that we use, technique is absolutely paramount. You need to do the machines really, really well and to a really high level to look, the machines are set in a way that you'll do it 80% correct, regardless of if you have an instructor, pardon me, or not. But that last 20% is with an eye on you while you're training is just that little bit extra to get that bit of technique out of you. The intensity, as we talked about, Ross, you said one single set to about 120 seconds to full failure. Well, if you're 90 seconds in and you feel you've got 1 or 2 reps left, well, generally having someone there telling you to do a couple more is you're going to get it out of you. And rather than having to be mind over matter, you've got someone there forcing you to do it.
Yep.
And then just simply for adherence, and consistency of training. To have a booked appointment, again, for someone who maybe lives a busy life, works astronomical hours, has a busy family. If you've got a booked appointment once a week or twice a week, then you're more likely to come. You're more likely to get results. And there's many other benefits of supervision, but I'd say the top three are adherence, intensity, and technique.
I have to admit, we did a follow-up session or a technique session not long ago, and I was cursing you a week later because you tweaked a few of the machines, and I was absolutely dying. And it was like the weight wasn't any different.
Yeah,
but it was that twisting one again, but we just changed the range of motion slightly.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely shocked at how quickly it got me, just by changing two settings on it, just to make sure that it was hitting the right things.
Yeah. I think that speaks to things like the golf swing as well. You know, that we as golfers, we try to mastery our golf swing, and we spend years trying to improve our swing and whatnot. So I suppose our training is somewhat similar to that in regards to mastering the technique of movement and then having that, I suppose, and gaining that awareness of your body and awareness of strength. So when you're stronger through a particular area of our body, naturally we're aware of what that movement is now doing. You know, you're aware of what muscle is activating which joint, and you can kind of, I suppose, take that into your golf and into your golf swing. And I think you said it as well, Mike, that your strength improvements mixed with your swing changes that you've made recently, both kind of married together, and you're hitting the ball 20 or 30 meters further. So
that's why Ross doesn't need to be there. Ross doesn't like it when I hit anything past him, and we've talked about it on the podcast the last few weeks. And certainly the Kieser strengthening and the swing changes. I've never hit the ball. I've never hit the ball as far as I am now, and my Callaway Epic low spin driver, of course, that I'm sponsored by.
As I did say, I'm now using a Callaway Rogue ST, and it is long. Don't worry, I think I've got you covered. I'm looking forward to getting back out there and testing your work versus my work. But let me tell you, Rory, we went to Barnbougle in March. It's a week that's called Peak Caridi Week, because Mike's been going to Barnbougle that week for about 1,000 years, and we'd played before, and he was squashing this golf ball, and it was like I walked up to it and gone, it's Mike's. And I'm like way back there. Like it was just like a full role reversal.
It didn't happen a lot before then. But actually one thing we talked about the other day, Rory, was about strength and hitting golf ball and distance, and not necessarily having to be a monster to be there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's probably a misconception. And I suppose a byproduct of through people our parents' age and I suppose through the 70s, 80s, 90s, strength training has been seen as a bit of a hobby, and it's only for really muscle-bound men with singlets who do it as a bit of a hobby and for fun. Whereas, the benefits of strength training are far. We know so much more about it. The research is there for not just our muscles, bones, and joints. It's there for the rest of our health. And getting back to what you said there, you look at guys like Joaquin Neiman and Will Zalatoris just injured himself, but JT, these kind of players who they're very small. They're quite slender, but you look at the strength. I remember hearing Tiger on a podcast or an interview or something one time, and he said they asked him, I think Joaquin Neiman might have won a tournament, or he might have been leading at the time or something, and he said, I've only just gotten to know him, but I know he's absolute strong as an ox. He's a beast, because he does a lot of strength training, but to look at him, he'd be probably 60 kilos wringing wet. So I think that's a misconception, is that strength equals size or size equals strength. It doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Like, Matt, you're not a huge guy, but you're probably one of the strongest trainers that we've got, and probably one of the strongest guys we've got down there. So it's definitely a misconception, and yeah, with pure strength training, it doesn't mean you're going to increase the hypertrophy of the muscle you're not going to continue to build muscle. It's the way the muscle functions, and the strength of the muscle that you have is the benefit that you get.
Matt, in your professional world, and we'll start to wrap it up, but in your professional world, do you see the need, or do you recommend people that come in to see you to go to Kieser and things like that? Is there a sort of link between what you do? You're a podiatrist. Is there a link between that and Kieser? Are you referring people down to Kieser at all?
Yeah, there is a little bit, and I've probably grown more aware of that over time.
Yeah.
Rory was alluding before to a myriad of health gains that you can enjoy through having greater strength and exercising regularly. And there's just reams and reams of research that validate the importance of strength training in regard to bone density, heart-lung fitness, reduced risk of osteoarthritis, reduced risk of diabetes, all manner of different things that you can enjoy through regular strength training. So I often find myself encouraging patients to look at that when they haven't previously. And sometimes they're like Mike and me, they're stubborn, or they don't know what's best for them, or they might not respond to the first person, but they'll respond to the fourth person that suggests they go and do something like that. From a podiatry perspective, yeah, there's clear interactions. I often tell people at my work, if I had a magic wand and I could make your feet and legs stronger, you would be functioning better, and you would feel much better. Your symptoms would diminish. So there's one of those machines that Rory was perhaps had in mind previously, where you walk past and see people with their feet moving from side to side while they sit on a machine, and they'll invert or evert their feet. Or they'll do a double leg raise on a particular machine with a weighted belt. So there's all sorts of different lower limb strengthening options there as well, not just the core and low back and gluteal stuff that Mike and I tend to focus on.
Well, the reason I ask, and once again going back to my golf shop, and we're not giving health advice at all, but I see a number of people with bad feet that come in. We've talked about this before, Matt. They come in and they say, I have to get this type of shoe because my podiatrist has said to get this type of shoe. And I'm, in my self-assessing way, usually you can see that it's probably linked to some other issue. And had they done this type of work, maybe the foot issue might not have come to bear. I don't know. That's a guess, but
I reckon there's a lot of sense to that.
Yeah. So, oldest client you have?
I know there's a few 90-year-olds or 90.
Good on them. Get in there.
90s training, probably at Essendon, mid to late 80s, I'd say. But it's never too late to start strength training. A muscle is a muscle, and if you put stimulus on the muscle, it's going to recover, and it's going to build strength. So regardless of how old that particular muscle is, so it's never too late to start. So if any listeners are thinking that that's the case, and I'd urge you to give it a try, and that can be with us or elsewhere. Start lifting weights and under the guidance of someone who knows what they're doing, and I'm guaranteed you'll start to see some improvement in your health and hopefully your golf.
Well, somewhat to that point, if you can't get access to Kieser, now this isn't flogging Kieser at all. This is flogging health and well-being as golfers and as men in particular, mental health and the importance of the whole holistic approach to being healthy, especially as you get to my age and older, and, don't wait too long, as you just said. But if you can't get to a Kieser, if you don't have access to a gym, and there's a number of reasons why you may or may not have access to any of those. You might be overseas where you don't have Kieser. I don't know. What are some of the things that you know from your professional life that you would suggest to people that they could do that actually may avoid them having to come and see you in a physiotherapy type of way?
Yeah.
What can you do? What can you do as golfers?
I think if you do have access to health professional who can give you advice, and if you're in a position to be able to access it and afford it and invest into it, I think that is a really smart option. If it's, regardless of who it is, it might be a physio, it might be an exercise physiologist, it might be a personal trainer, and seeking out if they perhaps if it's for golf related specific exercise, and seeking out this that they know what they're talking about, and they've had perhaps a little bit of history of training golfers or whatnot. But in terms of things that you can do yourself, there's whole libraries of exercise programs and self-help exercise programs, YouTube videos, libraries of websites where there's thousands of exercises that can help. I suppose the only risk with that is are you doing it correctly, and are you targeting the right exercises? However, any movement is better than none. So regardless if it's the exact right thing to do, then you're still going to get improvement. So lifting weights, you can use your body weight to do the movement. You can grab household items, bricks, bottles of wine, pillows, whatever it is. You can utilize something in your household to develop a program to lift weights. So yeah, you don't necessarily need to have a really designed, structured and supervised program to see improvements. Naturally, you might get better improvements that way. However, a quick Google search and a quick YouTube search is certainly going to bring up a lot of content for you. And if you've got some idea as to, okay, well, this is perhaps what I need, then there's so much out there.
I recently did a video for Drummer Golf on travel. Just been overseas, as I said, packed my gear into a travel bag, and as I was packing, it wasn't sort of planned, but I pulled out this green rubber stretchy thing, and I keep it in my bag, and I use that since I started at the gym. And I was saying I'm going to use this to tie my towel around my clubs, but I keep this in my bag all the time, and I just do some exercise and something like that. I think from Clark rubber you can get the different intensities, the different strengths. They cost about $5. Yeah. Even something like that is going to help, right?
Absolutely. TheraBands. Yep. Again, if you type in TheraBand exercise program, or get someone to design one for you, there's plenty out there, and they're great tools. Definitely great tools to use. Yeah.
Kieser, all around the country?
Most prominent in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We've got, I think, roughly 16, 17 in Melbourne, a couple down the Bellarine, one down in Mornington, 3 in Sydney, 1 in Gold Coast, and 1 in Hobart, and then Brisbane opening up in September, so a couple of weeks. So exciting, expanding. Our mission is building a stronger Australia, so we can't do that unless we've got one in every, well, at least capital, and then somewhat regional, I'm sure, after that. But yeah, there's certainly plans. I know there's definitely plans to get to the other capital cities as well. But kieser.com.au, you'll be able to find us on there. But again, not necessarily. Don't have to come to Kieser, but I certainly suggest lifting weights it's in our national activity guidelines. It's not just for golf. It's for all walks of health and whatnot. So
I should say as well, Rory, if you are a Kieser member like myself and Maddie, I've been down to play golf down towards 13th Beach for the week and shot over to the Ocean Grove centre. No problems. You don't have to do anything. You've got my app, had my towel, just walked in the door, straight on the machine, start working. There's no limits of being able to visit any of the other clinics. So it's very good having more and more popping up.
Definitely.
Well, Rory, you've got 2 converts here. Matty Mollica, anything else from you on the world of Kieser, your experiences, or anything else that you want to add to what we've been talking about? Because I'm going to come back to you in a minute.
Okay. Just a thanks to Rory and his staff, really. Yep. I'm not sure that they're aware sometimes of the degree of change that they've made to people's lives. The help that they've given me and so many others. It's near miraculous on occasion. So thank you, Rory, for what you and your team do.
Yeah, and Rory, I can add to that. I've known these two guys for a couple of years now, and I've seen them both, somewhat transform. I've seen Matty Mollica get fitter, stronger. Every time I see him, he looks 5 years younger. And that sounds like I'm being in jest, but it's true. He's a fit-looking man, and I've seen that transform. Mike, the same. Evidenced by hitting the golf ball past me. But I know what it means to them, and I know how committed they are to it. And if I'm seeing that observationally, something's going right. Just to hear them talk about it, absolutely means that they put their faith in the program and the machines and everything that goes with it.
Kudos to both of you as well. You are both the model trainers 3 times a week without fail. The biggest predictor for strength improvement is consistency. Sticking to something, doing it often, doing it consistently, every week without fail. You will improve, and you'll get the improvements like the both of you have. So, versus someone who maybe does it once every week or fortnight. So, well done to both of you.
Rory, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time late at night and coming together with the guys. I'm going to close by just going back to Matty Mollica, who is Australia's newest golf podcaster. Congratulations, Matt, on the Aussie Golf Passport, Australian Golf Passport. Listen to episode 1 today, and it's an introductory episode. You've got a lot to cover. What's the plans?
Have we got a lot to cover? We're about 200 behind you, Ross. We would like to provide a guide to UK and US visitors to Australia who are coming here on a bucket list golf trip, while also providing some information on our best courses to people who want to know more about them or want to travel interstate from other parts of Australia to go and see Barnbougle for the first time, or go and make a sojourn down to the Sandbelt. Some practicalities, some deep dives on the architecture and the courses themselves. There'll be some rabbit holes that we go down, no doubt. When we move from one course to the next, we want to try and shine a light on some lesser known courses as well. Encourage people to go out and see different parts of Australia that they might not otherwise have seen, or play courses that would have flown under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see us doing more than 24 episodes all told. We'll pick a region for the odd episode. We'll have guests for the odd episode. I think we'll have a mailbag episode at one point towards the end to cover off anything that we might not have addressed before that. Recorded the second one last night with Scott Warren. So yeah. I'd talked with Scott for years about doing this, and we finally got off our butts and done it, which is good. Learned an awful lot, and done a lot more editing and a lot more tech stuff than I ever thought I'd know how to do, which has been nice.
Mm-hmm. You weren't sitting in a Nissan Navara with a microphone pointing at the car stereo, were you? No, you didn't. No, you would advance somewhat from that.
I have thought of you while I've been recording the first 2.
Hey, have a look at this setup.
Well, I'm not sure if we'll put up a photo of the way in which Scott set up his room for the recording of the second episode last night. Sound quality at his end wasn't 100% with the first one. And he, last night, with the help, I think had to be with the help of his kids, had assembled the biggest blanket and pillow fort that any residential office in Sydney has ever seen before. So...
not the first time I've seen the old blanket and pillow sound deadening come into play. Once again, Clark's Rubber, you can get this beautiful sound deadening there for, he comes by the sheet. Well, it's great. It's certainly in a podcast landscape that is growing and, probably as you mentioned in your intro, growing with some of the same sort of stuff. The Australian Golf Podcast stands out as providing information that people, and I know people overseas, will want that, because everyone that I came across that hadn't been to Australia, all they wanted to know is about the Sandbelt. about Australia, about Sydney, about all the things that you're going to cover, and it was great. I was rapt to hear you talk about Newcastle so pleasingly, because it's probably the first proper golf course that I ever played in a triangular series match up Sydney versus Hunter River versus Brisbane Waters. So it's my first big golf course experience, and it's always going to be fond to me. So, and you're right, you go there and it's nice, and it's got that sort of feel that, Dad's Army is in there every week, helping make it better. And that's probably one of the things that makes it so special. So it was great to hear people talk so fondly about the Novocastrians. So yeah, well done. Looking forward to episode 2 and whatever else comes your way. Good.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Gents, thanks very much. We'll wrap it up there. And thanks for listening, everyone. You can get the links to, I'll put a link to Kieser, I'll put a link to Australian Golf Passport podcast. And of course, if you want to join us on the Discord and do all that sort of stuff, you're more than welcome to tune in to the My Love of Golf stuff. We'll see you next time on the My Love of Golf podcast. Thanks for listening.